I am gonna go ahead and get us started just because I see people are still trickling in. But the first part here is just a little bit of introductions and agenda. So I'll use this time as people still get in, and we'll get into the real important content in a minute later here. So, welcome everybody. This is our course registration and preparing for course registration webinar featuring our incredible College Advising Center. We also have our student director. Everyone's going to introduce themselves or will be introduced, and you can see us all. We'll go ahead and get started. I'll talk through kind of what this webinar is going to look like and then let you get to know who is on the call with us today. So we will do some introductions, so just so you know who these faces are and who's answering your questions today. Katie is going to give us a great run through of course registration prep, what you should be doing, what you need to make sure you have done prior to that course registration day, 2 days. And then we're going to take a look at WebAdvisor. Gabby's going to help us out with that, how to navigate WebAdvisor. We'll have some time at the end for Q&A, but I always like to just mention the Q&A is open throughout this entire webinar. So don't let those questions slip by you and forget and wait till the Q&A at the end. You can ask questions throughout this webinar. We have, as you can see, many advisors on the call, so they're going to be checking that Q&A and answering questions as they receive them. So as soon as you have a question, feel free to drop it in the Q&A. We'll go ahead and do some introductions. Hello everyone again. I'm Melanie McManaman, she, her pronouns, and I am the coordinator for the first year experience. This is our last webinar this summer, and we're really excited. I think this is one of the biggest ones, most important ones that a lot of people like to attend and make sure they have all that great information. I'm going to pass it to Gabby first to introduce herself, and then we'll pass it over to Katie afterwards.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gabby. I work for the first year experience as the student director. I am a racing junior majoring in sociology.
Thanks, Gabby.
Thanks.
Katie.
Thanks, Gabby and Melanie. I'm Katie McFadden. I'm the director in the College Advising Center, and I'll walk us through the webinar today. This is our second webinar. The first one a couple weeks ago was more about big picture items like how the liberal arts and the curriculum is structured at Lewis and Clark. So if you missed that one, you could always go back and watch the recording on FYE's website. This one's going to get into more of the nitty gritty on like how to use WebAdvisor and how to really prep for registration next week. I'm joined here by 3 other members of the College Advising Center, and I'm gonna introduce them and they can wave, and then they're gonna be off screen, like answering all Q&A and furiously working behind the scenes for all of your questions. So Katie Lemon is College Advisor and also happens to be the advisor for all the student athletes. So Kate, oh, you have to wave a little bit, Katie. Yep, there you go. Okay, we got Katie. And Bailey Cooper is another college advisor. Yes. And Nikki Yeomans. Okay. And then Heather Colombo couldn't join us today for the webinar, but Heather's also a member of our team. So odds are one of us has been emailing you this summer, answering questions about advising.
I'm here.
Okay. Oh, there, Heather's there. Hi, Heather. My little picture, my line of pictures was so small, I didn't see you. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving here. We're going to move to what kinds of preparation steps do you want to take this week to be ready next week? So next week is course registration. It happens in 2 rounds. Happens on July 30th and August 1st. Everyone takes part in both rounds. So on Wednesday, July 30th, starting at 10 a.m. Pacific time, first years you can register for 1 4 to 5 credit class. Transfers, you can register for 2 of those classes. So that's round 1, July 30th, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Round 2 is Friday, August 1st. That's when you can register for the rest. And most students take about 16 credits, so you'll be adding a couple more classes on August 1st. And some classes can fill, some classes there's not a ton of seats, so you really should aim to be on and ready at 10 a.m. Pacific time or as close to it as you can. That will be helpful. And so hopefully by now you have taken placements if you need to take math placement, language placement. Some of you may be a music theory placement if you're interested in majoring in that. And you've hopefully set up your emergency contact info. I'm not going to get into detail on both these items, but instructions for them are in the FYE checklist. I think Melanie will drop the checklist link in the chat. But you need to work through these things if you haven't already. Do them this week. The placements, especially if you need to access a class for fall that has a certain prerequisite in the system. Sometimes students assume they're going to take a placement and it's instantly put into the system, but it's not. There's a little delay. So that's why you can't take the placement, for example, 10 minutes before registration time and the score's there. You really need to do these things this week so you're all ready for registration on the 30th. Let's say those things are done. Let's take a minute to talk about how you're going to develop a list of classes. What are you going to take for fall? And I'm going to come back to a slide that we used in the first webinar a couple weeks ago, just kind of a sample schedule for first years. This is like a formula you can follow that, remember, if you're a first year student, one of your classes in fall is going to be that core class. You're in it already in words or numbers. And then your goal is to choose probably about 3 more classes to take. You want to explore a couple majors of interest, a couple things you might want to major in. Maybe one of those is general education. And make sure there's something in the list that you're really excited about. We call that, like, remember, take a class just for fun. Like, you want something in there that you're really energized about, or you really are interested in trying for fun. So how would you go about finding, what are these 3 classes going to be? And you probably want to pick 3 choices as well as a few backup options. What if the class fills? What if the time conflicts with another one? So you want to pick 3 main choices and probably a handful of backup classes. So to do that, I'm going to take us off the presentation real quick, and we're going to go to the College Advising Center website. You scroll down a little bit here in the menu and choose Major, Minor, Exploration. You can click Getting Started in a Major or Minor. Getting started in a major or minor is a curated list of, it's like each department has recommended, if you're interested in this area, here's a class or a couple of different classes you could try for fall. So this is what you can go to develop that course list for fall. So you're going to come in and say, what am I interested in? And then just make a list of everything that's recommended. So I think for this, let's pick on Gabby here a second. Hi, Gabby.
I'm back.
You're back. It's so great. Okay. Gabby, we're going to pretend you're incoming student Gabby. And what might have you clicked on here?
I will click on art,
Yeah.
creative. And I was interested in fulfilling summer Janet, so I click on chemistry, biology, some of the natural sciences.
So let's say, Gabby is interested in art, and the recommended classes for art, they're saying, take a course in a medium you might specialize in. So let's write down a few of these. This is where I'd say, write down your top choice and then write down a few backup options. Okay, so we're gonna make note of some of these numbers. And then, chemistry. Now I'm picking on Gabby a little bit. Don't know if she really would have picked chemistry, but I want to demonstrate something in WebAdvisor about chemistry in lab sections. So recommended first course, very clear, Chem 110. Okay, and maybe something else to consider. They're saying, when you major in chemistry, math is really important. You might also want to consider physics. So I'll make note of that. And then you said Latin American studies?
Yeah, that will be my last option.
Let's look at that. And here's a great example where they're letting you know, in this case, Latin American studies is not a major at Lewis and Clark, but it is a minor. So like, oh, it's a minor. Cool, great. Recommended first course, Spanish, wherever you placed in, or you could also consider the Intro to International Relations or Intro to Sociology. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to pass over screen sharing to Gabby. And Gabby's going to go into WebAdvisor now, and we're going to demonstrate a few of these things. And before we do that, I'll just say we're going to demonstrate each thing twice, because I know sometimes people can miss it on the first go. So we're going to do each thing twice, and we're going to show you how you take these classes on your list, get them set up in WebAdvisor for registration. Okay, Gabby, go for it.
All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay, so do register for sections, then search and register.
Mhm.
Then you're going to put in the term up there. CAS fall, yep, 2025. And then let's put in some of these subjects. So why don't you do art and chemistry and maybe sociology, anthropology.
Mhm.
And let's just start with those three. Yep, and then you hit submit down there, the orange button. This brings up a list of all the classes. And on the far left is this little white box. And anything that Gabby checks that little box for, we're going to be putting it in our shopping cart. That it's kind of easily accessible later. So Gabby, why don't you put in, yeah, you chose one of the art studio classes. Great. If you were actually doing this, you might choose that in a couple backups. But yep. Let's go down to chemistry. Okay, see how chemistry has 4 sections of general chemistry 1 right there.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay, just accident. But that's actually do that. Click on one of them. If you click on one of them, it opens another tab, and that's how you can read the description and see requisites. Requisites is the prerequisites for the class. They're telling you there's a math prerequisite and Chem 110L is the lab section. Okay, now you can go back to the list, Gabby. So in order to take chemistry or some of the other classes that have a requisite lab section, you have to choose one of the main lectures and one of the labs. So a Chem 110 and a Chem 110L. Yep. And again, Gabby, if you were really doing this and we were advising you, I'd probably tell you to choose all of the options that work with your schedule, like have some backups in there, but you could just do 2 for the demonstration. Yeah. And then let's go down to sociology. And again, you could choose your top option time-wise, but you could do one of the others as a backup. Yep, that's great. And click submit. This is essentially Gabby's shopping cart for fall. She already registered for fall semester, which is why there's classes at the bottom and some other things in the cart she put in there earlier. But you can see there in that middle section are all the things we just selected. They're all sitting there in the cart. Okay, Gabby, we want to go back out to the main menu. We're going to do those steps one more time. Yeah, real quick. Okay, starting again. Students, register for sections, search and register, put in fall. You can search various ways. Sometimes I just like the simplicity of putting in fall in the subject you're looking for. And then you're going to hit submit. Yeah, go for it. You're going to click a box next to anything you want to put in your shopping cart. Yep. And at the bottom, click submit. Okay. So that is going to search for things, putting them in the cart. Let's pretend it's registration day. I'm going to go back out to the main menu. I'm going to demonstrate these steps twice as well. We're pretending it's registration day. It's 10 a.m. You come on here and click register and drop sections. It's a shortcut to your cart. Takes you right to the list that you already went and gathered. So Gabby, you want to pretend register for something? You'll click next to the class register. And then why don't you hit submit at the bottom? It's going to give you an error message because it says, oh, Gabby, you see that in red text up there, everybody? It says, you can't do this. It puts you in overload status. It would give Gabby too many credits. If you get some kind of error message, that's where it shows up in red text. It says, oh, and it'll kind of tell you what the problem is. But this is how you go there and register for a class or register for a couple classes like on round 2. All right, you want to do a repeat of that real quick? Okay, we're pretending it's registration day. Register and drop sections. And then you can click register next to a course and hit submit at the bottom. It's going to be very mad. Yeah, it's got all kinds of problems. Let's come back to the, on this page though, stick with this for a second, Gabby, because can you take, yeah, you can just go back to register and drop sections. If you're registering for chemistry, let's say, you have to put register next to one of the labs and one of the lectures. So do that. You have to put it next to both of them. The pair of them is considered one course. And you click register. We're just making Gabby accrue error messages like Francie. Let's do a different scenario. Let's say on the day of registration, something you want is full. Yeah, you want to do register and drop sections again. Let's say you come to here and see over there on the right, Gabby, can you point out that column that shows you how many seats are available? Yeah. It says available capacity waitlist. It's telling you how many seats are available. And right now there's a seat available and everything there. But if you came here and something you wanted was full already, can you go over to the side and show Gabby, instead of clicking register, you would click waitlist. Adding yourself to the waitlist is not registering, but it does put you on the waitlist for the class, and the professor can see the waitlist. And you might get a seat off the waitlist in the next couple weeks. Like if someone drops, you would get an email inviting you to go back in and register for the class. So it's always beneficial to waitlist for something that fills up that you want to take. So you could waitlist for a class because it's not the same as registering. You can waitlist for it and register for a backup, register for something else. Yep. So you're adding yourself to the waitlist of the thing you really, really want, and you're registering for something else that you'd like to take. Advising team, are things coming through that you'd like me to demonstrate or things to repeat?
Could you perhaps show everybody how you might just do a course type search so you can bring up all of your options for open to first year students in the fall?
Yes. So you'll go, what we were showing were really simple way to search. Like for example, if you just want to look at all the art classes, but let's do a different kind of search. So click search and register, Gabby, the first one. You're going to choose fall for the term. In this time, keep the subjects blank. Let's say you're open to ideas. Like, yeah, I just kind of want to see a whole lot of options. In the lower right, so keep those blank. In the lower right, it's a course type filter. And maybe 8 from the top is one that says first year students. These are all the classes that are accessible to first years. Like the level is appropriate for first years. It's really thinking. Okay. It's a big list. But this could be a way that you could see comprehensively all the things that are open to you. You could also put in first year students and you could say, I just want to see Tuesday, Thursday classes or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Like you can search a few different ways. What do you got, Katie Lennon?
Absolutely. I propose students to search completely different ways than we're showing them here. So can we walk through kind of what, so go to register for sections. And then search and register. And then do the start term. And then under course level, do first year. The middle box.
Oh, you want the course? Yeah.
Sorry, I cannot hear. Can you repeat?
Where it says course level next to subject. Do first year. And then second year. And then click the open sections only box. Because not all 100 level classes are open. Some of them were waitlisted or full with our continuing students. Now hit submit. So this will give you the list of all 100 and 200 level classes that are actually in. So anybody that has AP scores, stuff like that, if you've placed into a higher level, you'll see those 200 level classes here. So psych is a good one. A lot of students have AP psych before 5, so you won't have to take psych 100. So if you were to scroll down to psych, you'd see the 220, 230, 240, all of those classes that you would then be eligible to take. The one thing I would point out is like the first 2 classes are listed as AES, and those are for our international students. But it's a good example of what to keep an eye out for. So it will say like AES 221-F1. So anything that has the F1, F2, F3, whatever it may be, are usually open to first year students. So English has a ton of 200 level classes that have an F that you'd be able to take. Same with history. For anyone like wanting to do a PE or for a varsity athlete, you would have to, you'll see that here. So I would go through that list, add as many classes as you want to your shopping cart now. There were other questions about how do I know, like with my core time, how do I do this? Start with your core time and then kind of just build, you know, around that. So classes don't conflict day or time wise. And you'll see all of that there. So add as many to your shopping cart that doesn't conflict with core and then build from there.
I'm seeing some questions in there about, you know, how many various iterations of credit total. So let's talk about that for a second. So the minimum number of credits to be a full-time student for like financial aid or athletics or other kinds of eligibility is 12. That's the lowest. The most credits you can do in your first semester is 19. So 12 is the lowest, 19 is the top. Most students do about 16 credits. Maybe if you're adding like a varsity sport or a music ensemble or chem lab, a chem class is 5, not 4 credits. You know, you might be at 17 or 18. That's really normal too. But 16 to 18, that mid-range is what most people do. Some students are asking what's the most classes I should do per day. You know, now you have a lot of flexibility. You could set up your schedule in different ways. And I would say go with, sometimes it's dictated by what you need to take and when that's offered. But if you do have a choice, you can think about, you know, do you want to go back to back to back and then have bigger blocks of time when you need to study and prepare and do other things? Do you want your classes more spaced out? You know, you can make a pretty good guess based on just what you've enjoyed previously. And then you can adjust after fall semester if you want to and kind of make some changes. I don't know, Gabby, if you've experienced some of that firsthand, like what recommendations do you have as far as just making a schedule?
Yeah, so you will see them, most of the classes, not all of them, will be like Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Like for me, that was one thing that I noticed. So therefore, I try to have Tuesdays and Thursdays free for homework. Or you can take all classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays and have Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays free for homework and other activities. Or you can have a balance, 2 classes on Monday, 2 classes on Tuesday. I think that's what most of the students do, having 2 classes each day. For me, it was a little bit more of just balancing homework, because some of classes require more time of homework, like I would spend 2 to 3 hours in the library and others didn't. So just have a balance in them. Right now, I can show you how my schedule looks like, and you can see that I'm taking just Tuesdays and Thursday classes. And I only have four classes.
And that's a little easier to do once you're more advanced student too, because as a first year student, if you're a first year student, not a transfer, core is a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class. So you have to have at least one class Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And a lot of the language classes are Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But where you do get to make adjustments, you can. So that's what I mean. Like sometimes it's dictated by what you're taking, but sometimes you get a little choice too.
Based on like past experience, it's more common for first year students to have 3 classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 on Tuesday, Thursday. A lot of the Tuesday, Thursday classes end up conflicting with one another. So you have to kind of choose 1 on Tuesday, Thursday. For most world languages are going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So that's really common. And honestly, like I'm going to speak to my student athletes who are on there. There's a lot of them on here. Do not take all your classes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, please. There's a good, I think everybody goes in thinking I'm studying on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But what I tend to see is that students do that for like a week or 2 and then they like to sleep. So just make sure you're kind of engaged in the day, like, academically, both days. And then let me know if you have any questions.
What else here? You can see when you're looking at classes in here, Gabby, I mean, I think when you're either looking them up or they're here in your cart, you can see the class, the name. If you click on the name, the description will open. Yep. And you can see the professor, you can read about it. Back in the shopping cart, you can see how many seats are available still, how big the class is. On the far right, you can see how many credits it is, right? I know that wait lists always bring up a lot of questions. So remember on round 1, if you're a first year student, you're registering for 1 class. If that class you want is full, you can wait list for it. That doesn't count as your registration. So then you register for something else, 1 class. On round 2, then you can register for the rest of your classes. If a seat opens up in something you waitlisted, you'll get an email that's basically like, hey, a seat opened up in this class you're waitlisted for. Do you want your seat? If so, go into WebAdvisor and make the switch. Go into WebAdvisor and register for it. You might have to drop something else that you didn't want as much to make space. You have 48 hours to go in and make the switch. And if you don't take any action, they'll offer the seat to the next person on the wait list. So that's why it's good after registration that you just keep an eye on your Lewis and Clark email. Like if you do get a seat, you'd hate to miss it because you just didn't see the email for a few days. But that's how you would know you got offered something else. And I know you guys have answered a lot of questions in the Q&A, but for someone watching the webinar recording later, they wouldn't see all those answers. I didn't know if there's things that came up multiple times or you answered multiple times. We could answer them live in case anyone's watching.
So, some questions about like classes that will fill quickly and how do you know what to register for on July 30th? The July 30th round, because it's just 1 course, really needs to be the class you want the most. Things like psychology, art classes, theater classes, some of the world languages like Latin, they have, just very few seats saved for first year students. And so those are going to be ones you're going to need to register for on the 30th. it's highly unlikely that Psych 100 will be available on the first. And so if you don't get into that is a great wait list situation where you'll want to wait list and then register for something else like Psych 200. Psych 200 does not have a prereq, and you don't need 100 for it. So you could jump into that and keep you on track to graduate or to major in your department. So those things will fill quickly. See what else we have. If you're registering for a PE or you're planning to do a music performance class, any 1 or 2 credit classes, you need to register for those on the first. It won't let you do it in addition to a 4 credit class, even though it says a 4 or 5 credit class. It's just one first.
You know, and some people are saying, oh, can I put stuff in my shopping cart already? It's like, yes, that's partly why we do this webinar the week before. It's like, yeah, you could totally work on making your list of classes. If you already have your list of classes, go into WebAdvisor, start putting them in, start looking at the days and times. If you try to register for something that conflicts time-wise with another class, you'll get an error message. It'll tell you, but you can also, when they're in your cart, it's easier to kind of compare the times and see if anything conflicts. And you can start even making a list for yourself. Like, here's my ideal class schedule. Here's my plan B. You know, here's some backups for those. So you can start strategizing. Definitely get in there, start putting them in your cart.
There's a question about music classes or music lessons. Would you like to address that question?
Let's see. What is the question?
Wait, where did it go? Oh, it looks like someone answered it.
Oh, because it's about auditions. Yeah, it's common that the music department, they have some ensembles where the department requires like a audition before you register. So it's really normal that people don't register for those classes until the first week of school, like until the department holds the audition. So you can add those things in the first week. That's the period we call add drop at Lewis and Clark. The first 2 weeks of the semester, you can make some changes. So music ensembles is a good example of one that most people wait for the auditions.
Question about Bio 110 and why it doesn't let students who have 20 AP credits or more register for it. And that's because you're coming in as more than a freshman. And that class is limited to just first year students right now. So you just have to email the instructor and let them know your situation. They'll give you permission to register for the class. Once you get that permission, you can register for it on the 30th. So I would email now if you're in that situation. And then another question similar to that was like, what should we register for? First, would it be the class that fills up quicker, like a lab class? If you are a science major, you really need to get started with your science stuff right away. So bio, you want to jump into bio 110, chem, you want to get into that. That should be your priority. And you know, anything else elective wise, they'll be able to register for it or take in the spring, and it won't put you off track to graduate. So make sure you're prioritizing your science stuff if you are a science major.
Oh, these are all good questions.
Jay, we have a question about like I was given a class for 4 and why didn't I get to choose that? There was a preference form that was sent out in June and students had to go in and rank their preferences. And so if you didn't do that, we did put you in a class. If there's a problem with where you're at, like time-wise, it conflicts with the class you really need for the major, like Chem 110 or something like that. You can email Dawn Wilson, the gened@lclark.edu, and ask her if there are seats available in other sections. She's the only one that can do that for you, so reach out to her. So we have a lot of student athletes asking about the PE credit and how that works. So if you're a fall athlete, you need to go into the physical education subject on the search grid. And at the very bottom, you'll see PE 102, and it will have your varsity sport listed there. So football, volleyball, cross country, things like that. That's going to be in the fall. Swimming, crew, basketball, obviously baseball and softball. Those will be spring sports. So you'll register for that in spring.
Yeah, Gabby's demonstrating here. So if you look up physical education subjects, you'll see all of the like yoga, pickleball, you know, but then underneath those are the varsity sport credits. So if you're in a varsity sport, you'll find it under physical education. Gabby, what's
Right
that?
now about words or numbers, sorry. If you're in words or numbers now, that preference form will be sent out again prior to registration for spring, where you will list your preferences for spring, and then you will take whatever one you want in this fall, take in the spring.
Gabby, can you go back to the main, like the class search page? Register for sections, search and register. Yep, that's great. Put in fall for the term. Remember this, we talked, well, this is covered in the first webinar, but I'm going to hit it again because I think it's an important point. Remember that you have your entire time at Lewis and Clark to fulfill general education. Sometimes incoming students really assume that they need to get it all done right away. They need to get it all done in the first year. A lot of students don't realize how much they will fulfill in general education just by taking courses of interest, honestly. So just know that as advisors, we're not overly concerned about choosing gen ed for fall. It's really important to get in there and try some classes in these areas of interest, things you might want to major in. Even so, if you're interested in kind of finding a fourth class or another thing to add to your schedule and you'd like it to be general education, you can search that way on this page. You could put in the term for fall and then that course type filter in the lower right. It's a bottom of the long list are gen ed codes. You could search one. So do like historical perspectives or something. Yeah. And if you put in one of those filters for fall, here's everything in fall that fulfills that gen ed category. Some of it might be really high level, maybe not for a first year to take. But remember what Katie Lemon said, like anything 100 level or 200 with an F in the title for first year, you could take. You can read about the classes here. So that can sometimes be a nice way to just find a fourth class, maybe something of interest, maybe something for fun, but it also contributes to a general education.
And so 2 major classes, 1 core class and 1 elective. Also, how do we know which class is an elective? Honestly, you guys, like, we are just going to recommend that you take a class in an area of just a major or minor. Like, it's going to help you determine whether or not you really love what you think you want to do. You'll have your core class. A world language is always recommended, and that 4th class can literally be anything. Like, unless you're a STEM major, like find a class that looks fun or exciting. And the question also asks, like, how do we know if it's an elective? If a class isn't required for gen ed or a major or a minor, it's an elective class, and you need a lot of them. So find something that maybe you've always wanted to take but couldn't. Take a music class, a theater class, something totally outside of, you know, what you think you might be interested in, because you might love it. And then the question, sorry, are there any classes we can't take as freshmen when we in the catalog? Don't use the college catalog to search for classes. That college catalog is going to give you all the classes ever taught at Lewis and Clark. And so it's not going to be accurate representation of what's taught in fall. So searching in WebAdvisor by fall semester will give you just the classes you're able to register for this fall.
Yep. I've certainly worked with students who fall in love with something they saw in the catalog only to find out it's not taught this semester. So it can be nice to just work within WebAdvisor, and that way, you know what are the options just for this term.
And we have a question about registration and how many classes we're registering for. You guys have all been placed in a words or numbers class, so you need to find 3 more classes. Music ensemble, PE, things like that don't count towards those 3 classes that you need to find. So those would be in addition to the 3 credits. So you want 4 academic courses, and then those PE, music performance, will get you to 17 or 18 credits.
Hey, Katie, we're getting a lot of questions about music ensemble classes, such as when to add them. Should they be considered as part of the top 4 classes or 3 classes in this case that students are registering for? And just kind of navigating that for students who don't know if they're in an ensemble yet too.
Yeah, so let's see if I can, I'll steal back the share from Gabby for a second. I mean, this is an imperfect formula. It's a formula, it's an example, but it's imperfect because music ensemble is a great example that if you're studying music and you're taking an ensemble, 1 credit, and a lesson, 1 more credit. For most music students, those are kind of add-ons to what you see here. And that's why at the bottom it says 16 to 18 credits. It gets flexible, you know. Most of the ensembles and the lessons and those things are 1 credit each. And it's common for music majors to be more in the 18 credit range for this reason. It's also okay for your first semester if you're sort of worried about the transition. I mean, maybe you do 14 credits, or you try 18 for the first week and during add drop, make a decision if you want to do that. So we provide this sample schedule just to kind of wrap your head around what most people are doing, but don't feel like you have to get locked into it too hard. The ensembles and the lessons are 1 credit each. And sometimes people do a couple of them, depending on what they're doing. If you can't register for them next week because you need an audition or something, it's totally fine to just sort of save space for it and plan that you're going to register for it later. Heather?
Yeah. I just wanted to pop in to say that the most important thing is to register for 3 classes next week. Register for 1 class on July 30th at 10 a.m. Register for 2 classes on August 1st. If you do that, whatever those classes are, you've done your job. You can't screw anything up if you've done that. And after that, if they're not the perfect things that you want, or your advisor has some recommendations, you can make changes. You still have time. But next week, the goal is just to register for 3 classes. And then we can make changes from there for sure. And you can add more things, you can drop things, but that's the goal. You can't really screw it up if you register for 3 classes. So
we tell people, like, I tell students, like, next week's a rough draft of your schedule. And maybe you don't make that many changes later, or maybe you have to make some, but that's why we're here. That's why FYE is here. You know, you have so many resources to kind of help you navigate it. Yeah.
We had a couple questions about world language placement, and how that works. If you place out of the 201 level, I know Spanish, I think all of the languages, if you place out of 201, you'll have to confirm your placement. Some languages are doing that now, but like Spanish is a big one that you'll have to retest when you get to campus during new student orientation. So if you placed into Spanish 202 and you really want to continue with it, you're not going to be able to register for it during registration on the 30th or 1st, and that's okay. There will still be seats available during new student orientation. So in that situation, maybe you're only registered for 12 credits, knowing that you're going to take Spanish 202 and register for that when you get here. There is that Thursday of new student orientation is you guys are able to go in and make changes to your schedule and stuff after you meet with your advisor. So there will be a chance to add 202 or 301 or whatever it may be then. And that's also a chance, like to make any general schedule changes. So we'll kind of look through all your schedules. If there's anything crazy that we think maybe this isn't gonna be the best fall schedule, we'll reach out to you. And then you'll have an opportunity to sit down with your advisor during new student orientation to make those changes.
Remember for orientation though this year that you could talk about plans to make changes, but they'll have to happen during ad drop.
Oh.
Right.
Good call.
But you will get to sit down with your faculty advisor and you talk about that plan for ad drop. Add something, drop something, switch something. Give it one last shot to get off that wait list and talk to the professor in person, things like that. So definitely strategizing. And someone asked this question and it applied very specifically to a certain language, but I can answer it in general. If you don't see a class on the schedule for fall, it might not be offered in fall, it might be offered in spring. If you want to, you could ask us, you can click search for sections as a way to see ahead to the spring schedule. If you don't see it on the fall schedule, then yeah, it's not offered, probably offered in a later term or maybe even next year.
I'll just add a quick note about Latin because I know Latin is really popular right now. Latin actually switches off every other year with classical Greek. And so Latin 101 will be offered this fall, but it won't actually be offered again until the fall of your junior year, which means that I would probably recommend, unless you're thinking of being a classics major, I would recommend that you have a backup for a foreign language or world language option in case you don't get into Latin in the fall, because putting off the beginning of your world language requirement until your junior year is like much later than we would recommend that you start that requirement, since it is a 3-semester requirement. Yeah.
We've answered 83 questions. Probably a little overwhelming. So
I
let's
think you
say,
just answered the question, Katie, about the athlete. Can we still sign up for a PE? I think what they're asking is like, can I do a PE and my varsity sport?
oh yeah.
In that situation, no, like I wouldn't recommend it. So you guys, students are required to take 2 PE classes, but you can get credit for up to 4. So even if you're not a student athlete and you love yoga, you could take it 4 times and get 4 credits for that. So the student athlete, if you're a varsity athlete for 4 years, you're gonna get your 4 credits through your sport, even when you're out. So if you're having 1 credit piece along the way, one of those are gonna get towards graduation, will all fall off at the end. So I would just stick with your varsity sport. Or take a PE 101 and not register for your varsity sport. That would also be okay, but just for PE credits.
Well, let's say you had a question and it didn't get answered, or you have more questions you think of, please reach out to your CAC advisor and ask us, and we can help. And the recording for this webinar will be posted, I don't know, Melanie, when do you think? In a couple days?
Yeah, later this week, for sure by Friday. And I put in the chat a link to last week's or a couple weeks ago, the last webinar that y'all put on, and then I think somebody asked a question about where to find those, and I answered it with the link, but I can put it in the chat for everyone so that
Yeah.
you have it really easily. This is where we keep all of our webinars. There.
The recording will be out by the end of the week, and you can watch that for some of the WebAdvisor steps again. Or the College Advising Center website has a how to register guide with some instructions. Or barring all of that, you can reach out to us if you're stuck.
I'm waiting for any other questions. But I don't see any. Wonderful. Well, oh, one more.
The classes? We were in this webinar, we were looking at the classes through WebAdvisor, which is what we recommend because WebAdvisor is what you use to register. And so that way you're seeing the classes that are offered this fall. Or unless you're asking about the list of recommendations by department, maybe Katie might be putting a link in there.
And you register for more than 3 courses alongside your words or numbers course.
No, because, well, you can register for little 1 credit things. Remember, the very top of the threshold is 19 credits. That's the very maximum.
Good
The more
question.
accurate answer is about credits. The most you can have is 19. And we don't really recommend the top of the top.
Nope. Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you to our College Advising Center team. Amazing people. Definitely reach out to us, to them, to your advisors in this next week or so if you have questions available to answer anything you need. And then be sure to go back and look at this recording. Send this recording to your friends that are asking you questions, to your students that are asking you questions. And yeah, we're here for you, and thanks so much for popping in today.
Thank you.